Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are actually talking about Facebook because Facebook is quote unquote killing people, and the government may just actually quote unquote kill Facebook thanks to something that just got reported today. Now, here's what's going on, and the core of this actually is coming from CNN Politics' reporting because I think it was actually rather clear compared to some of the other articles I read on this. I always read multiple articles on things whenever I can, but first, I have to give you the background on this before we get into today's actual topic. And for the record, I'd like to say, as I've said before in other videos and podcasts, that cybersecurity is agnostic to politics, but we are not immune from it. So I don't care where you are on the political spectrum. This is basically what's going on. These are the facts on the ground and my analysis of, again, what was just reported today. But first, we're going to start on Thursday, July 15th, because U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy basically warned on that Thursday that health misinformation is, and I quote, a serious threat to public health, and then called out the administration, or rather the administration directly called out social media platforms like Facebook, specifically Facebook, for not doing enough to stop the spread of false information on its platform. Meetings between the Biden administration and Facebook in recent weeks have been tense, according to basically sources familiar with the conversations talking to news outlets. That source also said that, basically Biden officials who had taken concerns about vaccine misinformation to Facebook had concluded that the company was either, quote, not taking this very seriously, or they are hiding something due to basically what they view as Facebook's unwillingness to tackle vaccine misinformation. Now, again, I don't care about your politics, what you think about that, or anything like that. These are the facts on the ground as being reported by multiple outlets. Now, skip forward from Thursday to Friday, July 16th, and when asked about Facebook and misinformation, President Biden said, and I quote directly, "They're killing people." I mean, really, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated, and they're killing people. Now, fast forward to Monday, July 19th, yesterday, he actually walked that statement back a bit through his press secretary and also directly. And when asked about that killing comment, Biden said, and I quote, "I meant precisely what I said. I'm glad you asked me that question. Facebook," and I continue to quote, "Facebook isn't killing people. These 12 people out there are giving misinformation. Anyone listening to it is getting hurt by it. It's killing people. It's bad information." Specifically, not saying Facebook is doing this, but 12 people are doing this. Now, what he's talking about is basically data from the nonprofit Center for Countering Digital Hate, and they basically had a report entitled The Disinformation Dozen. They did this in March that basically said 12 people, and they list them out there with shots, like screenshots, information, all this kind of stuff, were essentially super spreaders. Something like 65 to 85% of all vaccine misinformation are coming from exactly 12 people that have this massive platform that makes their stuff go viral, as they have millions of followers. Many of them are actually hawking products and making an absolute ton of money with things like fake cures, or things that they claim at least will cure the COVID vaccine. Again, not talking about your politics or your beliefs in this. So, to continue to quote the president, my hope is that Facebook, instead of taking it personally that somehow I'm saying Facebook is killing people, that they would do something about misinformation, the outrageous misinformation about the vaccine. That's what I meant. So there you go. Now, today, we just learned that the Biden administration may actually do something about this, and honestly, this could possibly be the worst thing they could do here. And here's what's going on, and this is where I'm cribbing from today's CNN Politics report, because again, I think it was rather clear, although I did read multiple sources to confirm. So, the White House is reviewing whether social media platforms should be held legally accountable for publishing misinformation via Section 230. I've done a ton of writing on this. I've written for Smerconish and also Forbes on this. Here in my daily podcast, my nationally syndicated radio show, I've talked about Section 30, and obviously that's the law that protects the Facebooks of the world and basically their ability to moderate content. So the Section 230 debate is obviously now taking a new urgency in recent days, as the administration has called on social media platforms to take more aggressive stance on combating misinformation. The federal law which is a part of the Communications Decency Act, which was struck down in 1997, and the only section of that was kept was Section 230. It basically provides basically legal immunity for Facebook when it comes to generating content. I've written on this extensively, but basically, if you're saying the most horrific things on Facebook, you can be held criminally liable or even be punted off their platform. That's not censorship. They're a private corporation, but they cannot be held liable for what you are posting. And there you go. So by virtue of that, and I quote basically one of the representatives of the Biden administration. We're reviewing that, and certainly they should not be held accountable. That's according to Benningfield, talking to MSNBC when asked about Section 230 and whether social media companies like Facebook should be liable for these lawsuits. So Benningfield said also that the Biden administration believes, quote, it is the responsibility of the people creating the content as well. It is a big and complicated ecosystem, and everybody bears responsibility to ensure that we are not providing people with bad information about a vaccine that will save their lives. Now, both President Biden and the previous president, President Trump, have advocated for revoking Section 230, but for different reasons. Now, Biden has long railed against the law for basically making protections for social media companies for misinformation, whereas President Trump basically claimed that it led to censorship and suppression of conservative voices. Again, I'm not getting into that debate, but here we are. One of those things that basically I think is beyond critical, and quite frankly, we don't have a better law on the books for this right now, is Section 230. Without Section 230, you listening to me or watching this will be censored on your social media. They have to. If you look at basically the internet landscape prior to the 1996 Communications Decency Act, when Section 230 went into effect, you have lawsuits like Zorin versus AOL, because AOL had millions and millions of users, and they were all basically hating on each other in one way, shape, or form. And what ended up happening was somebody named Zoran basically sued AOL because another user linked his home phone number to the Oklahoma City bombing, basically saying that this guy was selling t-shirts that were in support of the Oklahoma City bomber. He obviously got a lot of death threats, hate phone calls, all of this kind of stuff. So he sued. And basically, what ended up coming out of that was a reinforcement of the Section 230 of the 1996 Communications Decency Act. The judge basically saying, this is going to be impossible for AOL to do. They've got millions of people. How would they possibly moderate that? And when you're looking at Facebook, Facebook has 3 to 4 billion users in the world. There's no other platform that has that size, that has brought that level of user base together. Even if they were to have just the most insane artificial intelligence, they are not going to be able to keep up with this. It's going to be reactive, meaning misinformation is going to get out there. They're going to see it, and then they're going to do something about it. And right now, the choice that Facebook has made is not necessarily to get rid of misinformation, but basically to flag it. So, you got that friend that posts that meme that's demonstrably false, and Facebook has a little flag that says, this is out of context, click here, a fact checker has gone through this, etc., etc. But it's going to be never ending. And when you've got, let's say, these 12 people that are sitting across social media that are like basically pumping out 65% of what is considered misinformation that is going against, let's say, all of the research, all of the medical information on studies and tests and everything else that are put out by the WHO, the CDC, etc., and they're basically telling the population that the WHO, the CDC, etc., are essentially corrupt and can't be trusted, but go buy my miracle snake oil. That's a huge problem. So I can understand the dilemma that the Biden administration is in, especially when the vaccination rate in the United States has stalled for adults at 56% last time I checked, which was just before I started talking to you here. So we have a huge problem here. There's no easy answer to this. Facebook, and I have a lot of problems with Facebook. You can go watch my video called It's Time to Put Mark Zuckerberg in Jail. If you think I'm lying to you, that's one of my most widely viewed videos. And I did it a couple of years ago, and I'm gearing up for 2.0. So I am no Facebook fan by any stretch of the imagination, but what I am a fan of is anything that's going to protect free speech, even if that free speech is something that I disagree with. I don't want misinformation to get out there. I definitely don't want disinformation getting out there, especially if it's being sponsored by a foreign country that's designed to drive a wedge into the electorate. And I've written on that. I've done videos on that. You can go basically download every single advertisement in the 2016 election that proves that happened. But in this case, there is a line. In this case, Facebook can only do so much. If the Biden administration is going to start lifting those sanctions, then you and I posting just innocuous things could potentially be flagged because Facebook is now liable to be sued. And can you imagine how much time an organization would have to spend fending off lawsuits because everybody would start suing everybody else? We live in a litigious society. Facebook is essentially a platform for you to say what you want, and short of doing demonstrably criminal things like trafficking on their site, they have no liability whatsoever for the idiocy that you or I may put out there. And quite frankly, that's a good thing. Now, that doesn't negate the fact we have to fight and combat misinformation. I'm all ears on effective ways on doing that. At this point, those little, notifications they give to say, hey, you just posted something that might be false or whatever that is not going to deter those people that simply believe they're being censored, as opposed to say, you know what, let me read both sides of this. So we have a problem either way here. It's too far gone. But if the Biden administration is going to basically do, for different reasons, what the Trump administration wanted to do, we're back in the same boat, and you're going to get a whole lot more articles and complaints from me on that, because it doesn't just affect everybody for misinformation, it affects us all. And that's something that we really need to understand. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, where hopefully we won't be censored in the future. Although I know many people will make that argument already. Same with YouTube. Follow me here on YouTube as well. And as always, please stay safe, stay informed, stay private, and I don't even remember my ramble at this point. Take care.